When creating a guitar as original as the barn would, I wanted to have an original design to go with it. So I reached out to Attila at Attila Custom Guitars in Parma, Ohio to see what he could do. Attila had an original design he had been working on for a few years, but hadn't had a chance to put it into a guitar yet. So he sent me it, and we'd sent pictures back and forth to each other, where he sent me a design, I made a couple of tweaks, I sent it back to him, he sent it back to me, and we ultimately arrived on this. And really what this guitar is it's a culmination of a bunch of different designs, almost how it's a culmination of all the different ancestors I have into it. The top half of the guitar is an original design that Attila came up with, that's somewhat based off of a Gibson SG. While the bottom half, we ended up putting my Stratocaster that I've had since high school on the bottom, and then traced that so that it's kind of a mix of both. Similar to how when Paul Reed Smith invented the Custom 24 design, he ended up taking a Stratocaster and a Les Paul and putting them on top of each other and tracing it to come up with an original design out of two classics. You can see the similarities in the top half of the body here between the Gibson SG and the design that Attila used. It's a little bit offset, a little bit more like a Stratocaster, but you can see it still has horns that are contoured in a way similar to a Gibson SG, while still being original. Sticking with the concept of mixing an SG with a Stratocaster, the guitar body is somewhat thinner, comparable to an SG, while still retaining the contours you find on a Stratocaster, so it's a really comfortable, lightweight, and resonant guitar that brings the best of both. So for the neck design on the Coe History Guitar, I've never hid from the fact that I've always been a big fan of Norlin-era Gibsons from the late 70s. I had Attila build me this Les Paul shortly after he built me the pink Telecaster, and it's based off of some of my favorite 70s-era Norlins. And one of my favorite things about them are the necks, because they made several piece necks with the grain going in opposite directions with these really chunky volutes. It's very different from the traditional Gibson design of a one-piece mahogany neck, but I usually find that they're a lot more stable and give me a lot less issues throughout the year. So we ended up using that on the barn guitar. To add further stability to the three-piece neck, Attila and I decided to add carbon fiber rods that go right on either side of the truss rod. So this neck's pretty solid and it's not going anywhere. Another guitar company that I'm a big fan of is Music Man. So we ended up doing a sculpted heel where the neck meets the body so it's easier to reach the higher frets, similar how you see on some of the Albert Lee models. For the fretboard, we decided to use Brazilian ebony. And for the inlays, I ended up deciding to do my family crest across the fretboard. At the 12th fret, we did the family shield, and then I did a dot style inlay across that it's actually the birds that would be normally inside of the shield. So for the headstock design, we ended up using one of Attila's original creations that he came up with quite a few years ago. We just lifted it from the Les Paul custom that he made me, and we just put it straight on the barn guitar, and I think it looks really great. It's pretty traditional looking while looking really original at the same time. The next design that we lifted was from a Fender Telecaster. We ended up using the control plate because I'm pretty familiar with how the volume and tone feels right under my fingers, where I can really easily reach to be able to do volume swells, just like Jeff Beck or Roy Buchanan did. Drawing from one of my favorite custom guitar builders, Scott Walker Guitars, I wanted to have every little piece of this guitar be handmade. The bridge and the control plate I had custom made by Bobe Guitar Hardware out of Hungary, who makes some really great quality stuff. The Telecaster style plate here is actually an Alembic toggle switch design that we redeveloped so that it'd be big enough to cover a Telecaster style route and not just a three-way switch. I sent my design idea off to Bobe Guitars and he knew what to do with it immediately. He did exactly what I asked him to. The knobs I actually sourced from Haramis Musical Hardware, who I found on Instagram a few years ago. They really have some great original designs, and half the time I place an order, I'll just send them a picture of a custom build that Attila and I just finished and say, do whatever you think will look best. With this guitar, I wanted to be a little bit more precise. So I ended up sending in a couple of coins that I got from my grandfather, and I said, find a way to incorporate these in some knobs. And he did. They're a little bit bigger being the $half size, but really great grip, and they look fantastic with the guitar as well. The tuners I had custom made here in Cleveland by Spursel Guitar Tuners. I've been using their tuners on just about all my guitars since I was in high school, and I've always been a big fan of them. For these ones, I went down there and I told them what I wanted, something black, something gold to match the brass and black hardware that I had on the guitar, and they did a fantastic job with it as always. Continuing with the hybrid of ideas theme, I had all three pickups in the barn guitar custom made. The bridge in the middle I had made by Pete Billcroft at Vintage Vibe Guitars in Florida, and the neck pickup I had made by MJ at Seymour Duncan's Custom Shop. For the bridge pickup, I told Pete that I wanted to use a Gibson Les Paul Deluxe style mini humbucker. Twisting the design a little bit, we decided to use 12 pole pieces and also leave it uncovered. On top of that, following Tim Shaw, who's made pickups for both Gibson and Fender since the 1970s, we used a mix of Alnico magnets to get a really nice even string balance going across all 6 strings, and really giving a unique tone at the same time. For the middle pickup, we decided to do a reverse orientation G&L Comanche style pickup, which was one of the very last pickups that Leo Fender designed before he passed away. The reason we wanted to do the reverse orientation was having the pole pieces for the higher 3 strings closer to the neck adds a little bit more bass, and having the pole pieces for the lower 3 strings adds a little bit more treble. Overall, the tonality of the middle pickup, it's very flat, neutral, even. It's almost like using the rhythm circuit on a Jazzmaster and just perfectly pulls you out of the mix. And it's a really great contrast to the punch and nice edge that you get from the bridge pickup. For the neck pickup, I reached out to MJ at Seymour Duncan's Custom Shop, and I told her I basically wanted a P90 that was going to give me enough sustain that I could sound like Santana. She didn't disappoint. The neck pickup, having that extra sustain, requires a lot more output. So it's so beefy that when I go from one of these 2 pickups to the neck pickup, it's almost like getting a 10 decibel clean boost. It's kind of cool because it's passive. I don't have to worry about batteries or anything like that. And if I show up to a gig where I can't use pedals, or if it's sitting in or something like that, it's almost like having a pedal built into my guitar with how much louder I can cut with solos using that pickup. Having the different types of wood in this guitar, such as redwood, black walnut, ebony, maple, cedar, and oak, really adds to a nice, bright, lively guitar, or as some would call with the Jerry Garcia style guitars, or even some of the Olympics, a hippie sandwich with all the different kinds of wood that are sandwiched together in this guitar. The only wood that we did purchase for it was for the neck. And the reason for this is because when I was talking to Attila, he said that we probably shouldn't rely on having the most important piece of the guitar be a barn beam or something that's been sitting outside and abused for so long. Otherwise, that'll lead to more playability issues down the line. And I want to make sure this guitar lasts way longer than the projects that we put into it. Having a brass nut as well as a brass bridge really contributes to a Stratty-like tone. But having the thinner SG style body and not having a tremolo keeps it grounded in the Gibson realm as well. It really does lie somewhere in between a Stratocaster and an SG as far as the tone goes, and it can really pull off both pretty easily. Everything from my favorite Jimi Hendrix to my favorite Black Sabbath riffs. It's just very easy to play. That's enough about the history and the guitar geek side of things. Let's finally hear this guitar. Next, we are going down to my grandfather's barn that he built in the 1870s that's currently owned by the Walker family, who operates it as a wedding venue called Cedar Creek Barn. Thanks to the kindness of the Walker family, who also helped me source a good chunk of the wood for this guitar, We were able to take a full band down and record a live video and make a record inside of my Civil War captain grandfather's barn. Let's hear it.